Rudo is an ugly, pathetic loser who grew up in the slums, sneaking into the wealthy district's junkyards to salvage discarded items. Life changes drastically when he is falsely accused of killing his foster father and thrown into the pit, a massive abyss where the city's waste and unwanted people are dumped. Inside, he must battle monstrous creatures born from garbage to claw his way back and seek justice. The world he lives in is split in two, a shining city where the wealthy enjoy luxury, and the slums, where the poor are left to rot. Between them lies the pit, swallowing everything the rich cast aside, broken objects, criminals, even lives. One day, a woman casually tells her daughter to throw away a toy puppy she had just bought because it has a small defect. She insists it's better to buy a new one than repair it. Without hesitation, she tosses it down a garbage chute, which sends it through tunnels into a huge underground trash site. Rudo is there too, scavenging from the incoming loads of junk. As he sneaks around, a guard catches him digging through the trash. Pointing a gun at him, the guard calls him a filthy parasite, ruining the beauty of the city. Rudo doesn't argue, he's used to such insults, but when the alarm is raised, he quickly fights back with whatever garbage he can throw. The guards recoil in disgust when raw eggs splatter on their pristine uniforms, giving Rudo enough time to escape through a vent. He nearly makes it out before the gates close on him, trapping him inside as more guards close in. The following day, news spreads across the city, blaming the slum dwellers for the intrusion. In the slums, people shake their heads, saying Rudo has pushed his luck too far. Many secretly hope he gets caught, but Rudo doesn't care what they think. He sets up shop, repairing and selling whatever he can salvage. His friend Chiwa confronts him, asking why he risks so much just for scraps. Rudo explains that the rich throw away perfectly usable things without a thought, and he feels it's a waste to let them rot. Fixing and selling them not only gives him money, but also saves things that still have value. Chiwa seems to understand, but before they can continue, 3 boys show up mocking him. They sneer at his dirty gloves, claiming they haven't been washed in years, and say anyone he touches will get rashes. One of them kicks over the lantern Rudo just repaired, laughing that no one would ever buy his trash. They insult his hidden hands, calling them creepier than the gloves. But when they call him the son of a murderer, Rudo's expression hardens. The boys keep taunting, saying the slums exist only to hold the descendants of criminals and that Rudo's father disgraced them all. Pushed too far, Rudo glares at them with such intensity that they stumble back in fear and run away, still cursing him as they go. Chiwa stays behind, reassuring Rudo that she believes in him, that he isn't like his father and never will be. Quietly, Rudo picks up the broken lantern and begins repairing it once again. Rudo feels his face heat up when Chiwa mentions it, but before he can say anything, she notices the puppy toy he picked up from the dump the night before. What she doesn't know is that Rudo actually meant to give it to her as a gift. Just as he's about to do it, Chiwa's mother shows up and takes her away. With no choice, Rudo heads back home, where his adoptive father, Regto, is waiting. Regto playfully mocks how nervous Rudo looked while trying to give Chiwa the puppy, which makes Rudo turn bright red. Before Rudo can argue, Regto changes the subject, saying they need to talk about his trip to the junkyard. He reminds Rudo that he doesn't need to push himself so hard, they're not that poor. Regto thinks Rudo feels like he owes him something because he took him in after his real father was executed for murder. But Rudo insists that isn't the reason. To him, Regto is family, and he only wants to help out. Regto smiles and tells him to be just as honest with Chiwa. Rudo gets flustered again and accidentally strains the gun wound he suffered the night before. Regto quickly tends to him, changing the bandages on his hands as well. As Rudo looks at his scarred hands, he remembers how they've always been a source of pain and judgment from others. Then he recalls the day Regto gave him the black gloves that somehow dulled the pain. After finishing the treatment, Regto teases him again, telling him to confess to Chiwa soon or risk losing her. They continue joking around, unaware that a masked figure is eavesdropping outside. The next day, Rudo finally gathers the courage to confess and heads toward Chiwa's house with the puppy toy. On his way, he sees another criminal being thrown into the pit, the massive hole where both garbage and condemned people are discarded. He shudders, wondering what really happens to those who fall in. Suddenly, Chiwa appears beside him. Rudo panics. He wasn't ready to face her yet. She talks about the executions and then says she doesn't want him ending up in the pit. She warns him that some things may be worth saving, but his life isn't worth gambling for scraps. Rudo tells her Regto said something similar, and Chiwa replies that it's because Regto loves him. Rudo freezes, misinterpreting her words as a confession of love. Chiwa realizes too late how it sounded and blushes, but Rudo is already overwhelmed. Flustered, he hands her the puppy toy, admitting it came from the dump, but saying he thought it would be happier with her. To his relief, she accepts it warmly, promising to treasure it. Overjoyed, Rudo dances his way home, eager to brag to Regto about what just happened. But when he opens the door, his happiness shatters. Regto lies on the floor with a masked man looming over him. Before Rudo can react, the killer stabs Recto again and turns to stare directly at him. Rudo charges, but the masked man strikes him down with ease. By the time Rudo regains consciousness, Recto is barely alive. With his last breath, Recto urges Rudo to escape and change the world for the better before dying in his arms. Moments later, soldiers burst in and immediately arrest Rudo. They accuse him of murder, claiming they caught him red-handed. No matter how much he protests or insists the real killer just fled, they ignore him and knock him unconscious. When he wakes, he is dragged to the scaffold for execution. The entire slum gathers to watch, joined by people from the main city. The judge declares that murder, even against a slum dweller, is unforgivable. Rudo is sentenced to death by being thrown into the pit. In shock, Rudo searches the crowd for someone who might believe him. His eyes land on Chiwa. Desperate, he shouts to her, begging her to find the true killer. But instead of supporting him, she coldly says she trusted him once, and he betrayed that trust. She calls him a murderer, drops the toy he gave her, and turns away. Her rejection cuts deeper than anything else. Enraged, Rudo lashes out at the crowd, calling them the real filth, mindless, soulless cattle. He swears he'll drag them all to hell with him. That's when he spots the real murderer standing among the crowd. But before he can say a word, the guards shove him into the pit. Rudo falls endlessly, eventually blacking out. When he wakes, he's miraculously alive, cushioned by heaps of garbage. The stench is overwhelming, and as he struggles to breathe, he sees the endless wasteland of trash stretching before him. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms overhead. He turns, and his blood runs cold. Towering above him is a colossal monster made entirely of garbage, baring its fangs at him. Rudo's mind goes blank at the sight of the towering garbage beast. For years, he had thought it strange that people were obsessed with throwing garbage and condemned souls into the pit. Yet no one ever cared what became of them, or wondered what might exist down here. But there is no time to think. The monster lunges, forcing him to sprint for his life. Its roar shakes the ground, and more creatures crawl out of the trash, swarming after him. Rudo runs with everything he has, but soon finds himself cornered. He wonders what these things even are. Are they truly alive, or just piles of refuse given form? They leap, and by sheer luck, he dodges. He scrambles away, only to trip and land on a human skull. The grim reminder of his fate freezes him. He curses the people who threw him down into this hell, and the garbage heap beneath him collapses, dropping him into a cliffside crevice that shields him for now from the monsters. Relief does not last. The very air is poison. Each breath sears his lungs, and soon he is coughing blood. He presses his gloves over his mouth and nose, praying it will help, but despair creeps in. Maybe there is no safe place in this pit. The moment his blood hits the ground, the creatures pick up the sound and close in again. Weak and on the verge of giving up, he sees Regto's final moments flash in his mind. Something stirs inside him. Power surges through his hands. He does not understand it, but his vision sharpens. Lights glow faintly from the garbage piles, and an iron pipe ahead of him gleams like a beacon. Driven by rage and the will to survive, Rudo drags himself to the pipe and rises. He swears he will climb back to the surface, avenge Regto, and make those who betrayed him suffer. The monsters strike, but Rudo swings the pipe without even looking. The blow sends one crashing into the umbrella of a strange resident who watches in awe. Someone strong enough to fight the beast had finally arrived. Rudo fights like a madman. Poisoned air, blood loss, crushing blows, none of it stops him. He smashes rocks, cleaves trash beast apart, and even when buried in rubble, he claws his way out, dragging a steel pole with him. He slams it into another monster with staggering force, but the air finally takes its toll. He collapses, hacking blood, just as two monsters close in. His strange power flares again, carrying him through the clash. He hacks one apart with a jagged sheet of metal and splits the second in two, its body exploding in shreds of garbage. He barely has a chance to rest before a new colossal beast approaches. He turns to flee, but its stomp sends a shockwave that hurls him across the wasteland. As he struggles to rise, a figure looms over him, a masked man. Before Rudo can attack, the stranger lifts him effortlessly, shoves a gas mask onto his face, and saves him from suffocating. Confused, Rudo demands answers, asking if the man is a local, if they are underground, and what these monsters are. The masked man whispers for him to be quiet, but Rudo will not stop pressing. Finally, the man snaps and yells that they are not underground at all. This wasteland is above the surface, a nightmare created by the greed of those living in the sphere. Worse, the monsters are drawn to sound. Thanks to Rudo's shouting, they are coming. One arrives instantly. Golden energy flares around the man's arm, coating his umbrella. He spins it like a blade, shredding the beast until it dissolves into dust. More swarm them, but the man dives into battle, his umbrella slicing them apart before he drifts back down, gliding like a parachute. Rudo watches, awestruck by both his power and his strange weapon. The last monster spits acid, but the man blocks it with his umbrella and counterattacks, channeling more energy into a devastating strike that splits both beast and ground alike. Returning to Rudo, he finally unmasks himself, calling himself Engine, just a cleaner. But a breath of toxic air makes him cough violently, and he curses Rudo for forcing him to remove the mask. Rudo collapses soon after. In his dreams, he recalls a childhood memory of coming home soaked after being shoved into a sewer by bullies who mocked him for saying objects had souls. Regto had comforted him, saying the tale was just an old legend meant to teach people to treasure what they had, though he liked to believe it was true. When Rudo asked if even his gloves had a soul, Regto told him to care for them, and maybe one day they would. When he wakes, he finds himself chained and being dragged by Engine. Rudo curses him, demanding to be freed. Engine says he is taking him to a safe place, but Rudo is not listening. He only wants revenge and a way back to the sphere. That word makes Engine pause. He tells Rudo it is impossible. The sphere is not only high in the sky, but constantly moving. Still, Rudo refuses to give up. He accuses Engine of hiding the truth and threatens to shout until monsters come again. Annoyed, Engine drags him carelessly through the canyon until they reach a strangely clean clearing. Dropping him there, Engine tells him to enjoy himself and walks away. Moments later, trucks arrive, carrying men in gas masks. They swarm Rudo curiously, speculating about his strange clothes. Nervously, he admits he fell from the sphere. The men rip off their masks, ecstatic, for never before had they found a sphere dweller alive. They crowd him, touching his face and peppering him with questions. At first, they untie him and seem friendlier than Engine, but it is all a trick. Soon, Rudo is bound again, this time inside a truck. He overhears them outside, gloating about how lucky they are. A living spherite would fetch an incredible price. After all, body parts and clothing from dead spherites are already sold for fortunes, but a rare one, alive, would drive buyers mad. The leader tells Rudo that people pay so much for spherites because they hate them. He curses the sphere's citizens, accusing them of dumping waste on the surface until it poisoned the land, ruined the air, and spawned monsters. Many who lost loved ones or homes now carry a deep hatred towards spherites, and if they catch one alive, they'll tear him apart. As a cruel welcome, the leader offers Rudo rotten food and mocks him, saying spherites can't stomach garbage. But when he tries to shove it into Rudo's mouth, Rudo bites his fingers, tearing off the flesh and eating it along with the spoiled food. Shocked, the men watch as Rudo devours the meal, insisting it isn't trash since it's still edible. Fueled by rage, he breaks free from his chains and unleashes his power, lifting objects around him. From a distance, Engine observes, pleased that Rudo is a giver, someone able to awaken objects and draw out their strength. Rudo recalls Regto's words about treating objects with care, then throws off his mask and transforms his own chains into a weapon. The men rush at him, but he drives them back with one strike. Their leader orders them to target the chain, and they succeed in breaking it. To their shock, Rudo then picks up a tire and infuses it with power, something even skilled givers struggle to do. He defeats the men and prepares to strike their leader, but Engine intervenes. Rudo suddenly snaps out of his frenzy, his power fades, the tire crumbles to dust, and blood drips from his nose. Engine explains that reckless use of power exhausts the body. He apologizes, admitting it was a test, and promises to explain everything if Rudo joins the Cleaners, a group that fights trash beasts. Rudo refuses, but Engine ignores him, taking him to a clinic and telling a friend that he has recruited a genius. At the clinic, a sharp-tongued doctor scolds Rudo for walking in poisoned air and getting captured, then treats his wounds. Once healed, Rudo thanks Engine for covering the costs, but insists he only wants to return to the sphere. Engine warns him that life below is dangerous for a spherite and that nothing comes free here. He leads Rudo into a rundown city, cleaner than the wastelands outside, and even buys him a burger. Rudo realizes the surface isn't just garbage, people actually live here. Engine explains that emotions also gather in the form of energy called anima. Trash beasts are one result of anima, and they sometimes attack cities. Normal weapons don't work against them because their cores are made of anima, but Rudo's gloves can. Objects treated with care can also hold anima, becoming vital instruments. Givers like them can unlock that power, and the Cleaners are a group devoted to fighting trash beasts. Rudo demands to know if joining will help him return to the sphere. Engine admits he doesn't know how, but says his wise leader might. Rudo's frustration deepened when Engine told him that before making any real decisions, he would need to meet Engine's superior. The demand annoyed him, but before he could say anything more, Engine asked about his gloves. Rudo admitted that they had belonged to his father, and they were the only keepsake he had left of him. For the first time, Engine seemed to understand why Rudo valued the battered gloves so much. He told Rudo to protect them carefully, because they carried a powerful soul within them. The words struck Rudo harder than he expected. All his life, people had mocked him for wearing those gloves, yet Engine spoke with respect. He felt a knot of emotion tighten in his chest, but before he could dwell on it, Engine received a message and said he had to meet a colleague. When Rudo stood up to thank him for everything he had done, Engine tossed him a pouch of coins, advising him to spend it wisely. Rudo was stunned. After saving him, healing him, and feeding him, Engine was now giving him money as well. He demanded to know why, but Engine explained casually that it was nothing. He had sold off his clothes to cover Rudo's treatment and meals. The explanation only made Rudo angrier. He couldn't believe Engine had sacrificed so much, but Engine waved his outrage away, saying he couldn't have walked around the city in clothing from the sphere anyway. With that, he announced he was off to see his trainer, ordering Rudo to wait patiently. Fuming, Rudo barely noticed a stray cat slip past and snatch his pouch of coins. He gave chase immediately, but the animal was too fast. Just as he was about to lose sight of it, he spotted a crescent-shaped stick lying in the street. He seized it and used it to block the cat's escape, pinning it down. Before he could reclaim his money, the stick's owner appeared, furious at Rudo for daring to touch what he called his treasure. Rudo, confused and still irritated, demanded to know what was so precious about a crooked piece of wood. The man's anger flared, and he shoved Rudo away, vowing he would pay for his crime. Then, to Rudo's astonishment, the man began channeling energy into the staff, revealing a symbol identical to the one he had seen on Engine's umbrella, the mark of the cleaners. The man's staff transformed into a weapon, and he swung it toward Rudo. The strike landed wide, deliberately missing. The stranger introduced himself as Zanka, the one Engine had entrusted with Rudo's training. He scolded Rudo, saying he never thought he would have to teach a brat that stealing was wrong. Rudo snapped back, insisting he had only borrowed the stick to get his money back, but Zanka sneered that his father must not have raised him properly. The insult cut deep. Rudo could forgive many things, but no one was allowed to mock Regto. His anger flared until he remembered something his father had once told him. If you want someone to listen, step back first and try to understand them. Rudo thought about how suddenly taking someone's treasure would feel, and realized that Zanka had every right to be upset. If anyone touched his gloves, even by mistake, he too would be furious. With that, he admitted fault and apologized. Zanka's mood shifted almost instantly. He accepted the apology, even acknowledging that he should have been calmer himself. The sudden change left Rudo bewildered. For the first time, he had managed to defuse a tense moment with words instead of fists. His father had been right. Zanka helped him to his feet and asked about his vital instrument. Rudo told him it was probably his gloves, though he still didn't know what they could do. Examining them, Zanka admired their craftsmanship, while Rudo marveled at how different the man seemed now. Then it struck him, Zanka was smiling. Rikuto had always told him that smiling was the key to making friends. Rudo had never tried it himself, but emboldened by the thought, he attempted to copy a human smile. The result was horrific. His forced expression looked nothing like joy, and Zanka recoiled, shouting at him in disbelief. He accused Rudo of mocking him, but Rudo protested earnestly, saying that was the best smile he could manage. Zanka barked that even a blind man could tell it wasn't a smile, so Rudo tried again, closing his eyes and lips in an effort to make it more natural. It was less terrifying this time, but still far from convincing. Zanka only grew more irritated. He believed Rudo was acting smug, leaning on Engine's praise of him as a genius. He told him bluntly that if he kept fooling around like this, he would never reach his goals, but that struck the wrong nerve. Rudo's expression hardened as he thought of his true mission, to return to the sphere and reshape it, fulfilling Rikuto's final wish. He told Zanka with absolute conviction that he was serious, and demanded he stop mocking him. Zanka narrowed his eyes, drew his weapon once more, and declared that they were not going to get along. Rudo agrees with Zanka and pulls out a metal rod from a garbage bin, awakening its power. Zanka is shocked when he realizes why Engine called Rudo a genius, since he can use random objects as vital instruments. Still, Zanka stays confident, saying that natural talent alone will not be enough to beat someone who worked hard like him. Rudo does not even notice the taunt was a distraction until Zanka's staff nearly smashes into him. He dodges frantically, but Zanka quickly overwhelms him and pins him to the ground. Just as Zanka declares victory, he notices something strange on his face. Wiping it off, he sniffs it out of curiosity, only to realize it is poop. Horrified, he discovers the weapon Rudo picked up was actually the handle of a filthy toilet plunger. Rudo, clueless, starts swinging the plunger around like a weapon, sending filth flying everywhere. Zanka panics and desperately dodges, but Rudo chases him relentlessly through alleys, turning it into a chaotic Tom and Jerry-style chase. Eventually, a cat trips Zanka on the main street, and Rudo slams down the plunger with full force, splattering him in disgusting filth and knocking him out cold. Engine shows up just in time to find Zanka twitching in a garbage heap, traumatized. He bursts out laughing, teasing Zanka for getting defeated by poop. Rudo, on the other hand, is horrified to learn what he had actually been swinging around. Engine reassures him, saying Zanka is a spoiled kid anyway and deserved the lesson. As they drive back, Rudo notices a pair of boots in the car, but before he can ask, Engine explains that despite the rough start, Zanka will be his trainer from now on. He praises Zanka as the most skilled cleaner when it comes to vital instruments. The compliment makes Zanka giggle, showing just how much Engine's words mean to him. Suddenly, a beautiful woman named Rio wakes up in the back seat. She says she was curious about the new guy and casually starts playing with Rudo's hair. Rudo freezes, completely flustered at receiving female attention for the first time in his life. Eventually, they arrive at the cleaner headquarters, hidden deep in the wilderness. Driving past ruined cities and through a fortified tunnel, Engine welcomes Rudo to the base. Still dazed from Rio's teasing, Rudo follows inside. At the reception, a tanned woman named Semiu greets them while casually reading a Playboy magazine. Before Engine can introduce her properly, she suddenly flicks her fork, killing 2 flies buzzing around Rudo. Stunned, Rudo listens as Engine explains that her glasses are her vital instrument, allowing her to see through people. She activates them on Rudo, but what she sees shocks her so much that she quickly deactivates the ability. When Engine asks what she found, she downplays it, saying Rudo does not need physical training, already has a bond with his gloves, but just needs to practice using them. Engine suspects she is hiding something, but does not press further. He then explains that cleaners number around 100 total, but they are often scattered on missions. Rudo will eventually meet them, but for now, Engine takes him to see the boss. Before entering, he warns Rudo not to ask about returning to the sphere right away, or about the boss's vital instrument, since no one knows what it is. But when they reach the office, the room is empty. Semiu appears and explains the boss is away on a mission. Rudo fumes at having to wait, but before he can complain further, Rio invites him to tag along on her mission. Since he cannot be an official cleaner until the boss approves, she says he can be her trainee for now, and she personally wants to observe him. Rudo's brain short-circuits again, but he follows her. At the strategy room, Semiu briefs the team. A nearby town has reported trash beasts approaching from the polluted zone. She also hands Rudo a protective mask, warning him that without it, the toxic air could kill him in minutes. Out on the mission, Rudo marvels at the garbage dump. Where others see trash, he sees treasure. Rio introduces her support team, including one guy with monstrous grip strength who nearly crushes Rudo's hand. Before Rudo can recover, the alert is raised. Trash beasts are approaching. The first wave, a herd of goat-like beasts, smashes into the wooden fence but cannot break through. Just as Rudo calms down, a larger, fiercer wave arrives, rattling the barricades. Rio brushes it off as normal training material, telling him to relax and keep a positive mindset if he wants to survive on the surface. But then, a massive beast suddenly bursts through the barricade, making even Rio panic at first. However, her panic quickly turns into excitement. Calling it stylish, she grins and draws her vital instrument, a pair of scissors called Ripper. Activating them, she hurls the scissors skyward, where they grow to enormous size. Catching them with her legs, she charges straight into the horde, kicking and slicing through the trash beast with terrifying elegance. Rudo can only watch in awe, barely understanding what he is seeing. Rudo realizes that everyone uses their weapons in their own way when the handshake guy tells him to pay more attention to his surroundings. Too late, he notices a level 2 trash beast rushing at him, but a supporter blocks it with his bare hands, crushes its head, and tosses it to Rio. She slices it apart with her scissors and asks for more beasts. The supporters throw heavy monsters toward her with ease, and she cuts through them without struggle. By the time Rudo understands that this is how cleaners fight, Rio has already wiped out the weaker beasts. Only the boss monster is left. The supporters move to block smaller threats, but one half-disabled beast suddenly wakes up and trips a supporter. It leaps on him, and he cannot escape in time. Rudo rushes in to save him, determined to prove his worth. He twists the iron pipe in his hands into a strange, spiked barricade. At first, he is confused because he realizes he has been relying on instinct all along and does not fully understand how his power works. The beast forces him down, but Rio steps in and quickly slays it. She tells him he made the right choice by following his instinct to save others. Another supporter arrives and asks if the giant boss is defeated. Rio replies that she cut it in half, yet it still lives. She does not understand how it survived when she was sure she hit its core. Deciding to finish it off, she prepares to slice it into pieces. The supporters log this as a new type of trash beast that seems immune to vital instruments and head out to warn nearby towns. Meanwhile, Rio charges toward the monster, leaving Rudo behind without clear instructions. She leaps onto the beast's face, climbs to its head, and cuts off the pipes protruding from it. Beneath her feet, she sees a glowing spot, likely its hidden core, but before she can strike, the monster thrashes violently and throws her away. The pipes reattach themselves and the beast begins slamming its jaw against the ground with fierce force. The attack suddenly shifts toward Rudo and the supporters. Rudo freezes as the metal pipes fly at him. He narrowly avoids a direct strike, but the ground shatters beneath him and he falls. As he drops, he questions what he is even doing and despairs that he cannot avenge Recto or fight those responsible in the sphere. Darkness starts to consume him, but the supporter rescues him from the fall and from giving in to hopelessness. Carrying Rudo on his shoulder, he tells him not to freeze in fear, but to keep moving toward his goal. He points out that even supporters without powers never stop doing their duty. At that moment, Rudo notices Rio striking the monster again. Judging by its screams, she has found its weakness. She leaps high and drives her scissors straight into its head, ripping out its core. The beast collapses into ash. The supporter rushes over and asks how she killed it. Rio explains that she stabbed something other than its core. In her hand is a cardboard cutter. She reveals that this was powering the trash beast. The supporter is shocked, realizing that the cutter is actually a vital instrument, something no trash beast should possess. Elsewhere, the bandit leader who planned to sell Rudo wakes in a dimly lit room. Confused, he sees a man on a sofa asking about the boy from the sphere mentioned in his sleep. Back at the cleaner's headquarters, Rio throws a welcome party for Rudo. Zanka shows up, still groggy from his nap, and asks what is happening. Rio says they are celebrating Rudo's arrival, but Rudo sits silently in a corner, his head down. Zanka wonders why he looks depressed. Rio explains that ever since his weapon failed him in the fight, he has been gloomy. Zanka thinks it is unfortunate, but moves on to the news about Rio's strange battle. She explains that the trash beast had a vital instrument as its core instead of anima. Since it was beyond her, she left the matter to higher authorities and returned to celebrate instead. Rudo is still sulking when the leader of the supporters, Grizz, arrives. He praises Rudo for his efforts, though Rudo feels he did nothing. Grizz reminds him that he saved another supporter from danger. Rudo admits that, even so, he lost control of his power and had to be rescued. He feels useless, just as he often did on the sphere, where Recto had to cover for him. But Grizz thanks him, catching him off guard. He says most beginners look down on supporters, but Rudo did not. Grizz then speaks of Fallow, the man Rudo saved. Fallow wanted to fight but had no weapon yet. He now works as a supporter while treasuring an object, hoping it becomes his vital instrument one day. Grizz tells Rudo not to obsess over strength or expectations. Instead, he should think about what he truly wanted, even before the sphere. If Rudo finds the thing that first lit a fire in his heart, he will find his way. Grizz pats his head, telling him to believe in himself. Rudo feels emotional, but Engine suddenly leans on him and asks why he is not eating, breaking the mood. Soon, Rio and Zanka also come over, urging him to join. They tell him he is the star of the night and should eat before the food runs out. Rudo is touched that everyone cares about him and finally joins in. As they eat, someone plays music and picks up paint cans. He begins spraying on the wall. Engine tells Rudo to watch this man, Gob, who does whatever he wants without caring for others. While Gob paints, the others complain and tell him to wait until after dinner, but he ignores them completely. Meanwhile, on the ground floor, Mami Semu returns to her desk already anticipating that the phone will ring. The moment it does, she answers and receives a request. She summons Zanka and a team of supporters to handle it, but Zanka questions why Rudo is being involved when he has not been formally admitted to the cleaners. Semu explains that the request is connected to him. The client is a merchant who was attacked by a trash beast while crossing a polluted zone. He managed to escape but lost his valuable cargo. The request is to defeat the beast and retrieve what was stolen. The twist, Semu explains, is that the cargo is not goods but a living spherite. The team is stunned. 2 living spherites on the surface at the same time is nearly unheard of, and Semu suspects that something unusual is happening. She wants Rudo to see it for himself. Rudo hesitates, aware that he cannot control his power well and could be a burden. Grizz advises him to stay calm and think clearly. But the chance to meet another spherite gives Rudo hope of finding a way back to the sphere, and he decides to join. Zanka is displeased, but Semu convinces him by explaining that the mission was originally assigned to Engine, who is busy elsewhere and personally asks Zanka to handle it. That alone is enough to energize the proud engine devotee who eagerly takes the lead. As they pass through the polluted zone, Rudo notices Grizz doesn't carry a weapon. Grizz admits he has only a knife but prefers his hands. A supporter then blurts out that Grizz always carries a talisman he prays to, leaving him embarrassed. Eventually, Grizz shows it to Rudo, saying it is nothing special, just something that gives him focus. Not long after, they notice a figure trailing them. It is a strange merchant who introduces herself as the one who hired them. Rudo immediately asks about the spherite. She explains that she stumbled upon an unconscious spherite during her travels and tried to help, but a trash beast attacked and carried the spherite away. Rudo presses her, suspicious she may intend to sell the captive, but she denies it, insisting she is only curious about spherites. Zanka is unconvinced. Trash beasts usually attack humans outright, not kidnap them, and he feels the story reeks of lies. Still, he keeps his suspicions to himself for the moment. The merchant then leads them to a ruined building where the beast supposedly fled with the spherite. Zanka warns everyone to stay alert, but when they enter, the place is empty except for a lone figure at the far end. The merchant insists it is the spherite and begins shoving Rudo and the others closer. Once near, Rudo realizes the figure is not a person at all, but a doll dressed as a spherite. Before they can react, the merchant leaps back, urging them to hurry. Suddenly, the ground beneath them softens into mud, and the entire group plunges to a lower level. Dazed, they demand answers, but the merchant only laughs eerily. She points at Rudo, declaring that he is the true spherite, before dissolving into a pool of mud. Two eerie voices echo through the chamber, calling for the spherite giver, and twin purple lights flicker to life in the darkness. Zanka's expression hardens. He recognizes those lights immediately. The raiders have arrived. These ruthless bandits make no effort to hide their intent. They want Rudo. Grizz quickly explains to Rudo that the raiders are a notorious gang of givers, dangerous because of their powers as much as their cruelty. He orders the supporters to retreat and protect Rudo, while he and Folo hold the line. Zanka is left to confront the two raiders directly. Though reluctant, Zanka knows there is no choice. As the group scatters, Rudo insists he can handle a few bandits, but Grizz warns him not to underestimate them. Meanwhile, Zanka taunts the raiders, admitting he always expected they would come for Rudo, though he never thought they would act so soon. He sneers and asks if they plan to sell Rudo, since a living spherite would be worth enough to make them rich for life. The raiders laugh at the suggestion of selling Rudo. They insist they are not interested in money, but in knowledge. What they want is information about the sphere, and to them, a spherite is the best possible source. More than anything, they demand to know how Rudo crossed the barrier without dying. Even Zanka, despite his focus on the battle, finds himself curious about that detail. But he decides there is no time to dwell on mysteries. Since the raiders set this whole trap, there is no trash beast to worry about. He only needs to defeat them. The female raider smirks and warns him that he should still worry about the mud dolls she can summon at will. Zanka scoffs, claiming he can handle weak tricks like that with his eyes closed. He activates his staff and smashes through the mud dolls one after another. But in the chaos, the male raider slips among the decoys, ambushing Zanka from behind. The strike slams him into a pillar before the man vanishes again into another doll. The woman mocks him, explaining that cleaners are only used to fighting trash beasts. Against humans, they are clumsy and unprepared. She tells Zanka that this will be the last game of Find the Real One he ever plays. Zanka fights furiously, tearing through dolls, but the male raider continues to land punishing blows to his back. Cornered, Zanka makes a desperate move toward the female raider, only to stumble on a slick puddle she had set as a trap. With cruel satisfaction, she declares that he is the only one capable of challenging her. Once he falls, the rest of the group will be defenseless. Instead of panicking, Zanka snaps at her, mocking her endless chatter and telling her to start a podcast if she wants to talk so much. He explains that earlier, he assumed the woman controlled the mud dolls with her shovel while the man used his vital instrument to strike, but after watching carefully, he realized he was wrong. The male raider has simply been punching him, while his true vital instrument is a pair of snowshoes that let him move freely across unstable mud. That is why he seems untouchable on this treacherous ground. With a sneer, Zanka calls them a perfect couple, which immediately provokes the woman's anger. She lashes out, but Zanka slams his staff against the ground, releasing a sonic wave that ripples through the chamber. He listens carefully to the vibrations as they pass through the mud dolls. The instant the wave resonates differently through one of them, he knows where the man is hiding. With explosive speed, Zanka charges, knocking the male raider unconscious in a single strike before swinging at the woman. She collapses and all of her mud dolls crumble at once. Standing over them, Zanka dismisses them as nothing more than beginners. But his moment of victory is short-lived. A shadow looms behind him, and the true leader of the raiders steps forward. Calm and menacing, he challenges Zanka, telling him that if he is unsatisfied with weak opponents, he should face someone stronger, bringing the anime recap to an end.